So it's postseason time, and with that right around the corner, I thought why not talk about my favorite team, the Miami Heat, your future 2022 NBA champions. But with that time of the season again, I would like to talk about them and how I feel like they're probably the most dangerous team going to the playoffs around this time. I mean, about a couple days ago, or at least I think about 10 days ago, we started off on a 4-game slide against some questionable competition. But ever since then, especially with that big fight on the court, the Miami Heat seem to finally whip themselves in shape and are now on a 5-game winning streak, with it being night and day in the competition that they were beating versus what they were losing to. So with that being said, and everybody look like they're finally getting the playoff form, and overall the team being majority healthy, at least no big rotational players really out right now, I think it's time we talk about the postseason and how I think they're the most dangerous team in the Eastern Conference. Probably have the easiest schedule going to the playoffs with the way the bracket is set up right now, and I think have the highest odds to make it to the NBA Finals out the East. So let's go. So first things first, I think I would want to talk about the biggest issue I think Miami Heat had this season, and that was closing out games where they had big leads. Throughout the year, they have had multiple games where they have 20 to 30 point leads sometimes. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit. About 15 to 20 point leads going into the fourth quarter sometimes, and then it dwindles all the way down to either a 5-point win, a 1-point win, or sometimes even a couple losses. So far in these last 5 games, they've done a really good job of extending their lead throughout the game and keeping it that way. In the Sacramento Kings game, they did a good job of getting a big lead and they never let that drop. The Boston game was a pretty grinded out performance, but overall they're really able to pull away in the end, something that they haven't been able to do throughout the season consistently. And every other game, they've really just been great when it comes to crunch time, other than Toronto, where they almost let the game get away with them a little bit, but they're able to shape up in the last half. With that being said, I do think that being one of the biggest problems we had, and seeing that being rectified in these past couple games gives a very, very nice picture painted for playoff time when we do play some of these teams where I think we can at some point get a big lead on them. Another thing I'd like to point out is that with 3-point shooting being this team's biggest weapon going throughout the year on offense, it's really nice to know that they really haven't had crazy down months. They've been hovering between 35 to 40% for the entire year. And even then, one of their lowest shooting months, I think the lowest shooting month at 35% would rank them still in the top half of the league if they shot that the entire season. So that's really nice to know that these shooters are extremely consistent, especially with how inconsistent our best shooter at the coming season was in Duncan Robinson. Everybody else still been able to stay on form. So going into the playoffs, I think our biggest offensive weapons going in would be 1, our 3-point shooting, 2, any action that deals with Bam Adebayo in the pick and roll, whether it's a pick and roll with Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry, or a pick on the baseline or at the top to get Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, or Gabe Vincent open. I think those 2 will not only be our biggest offensive focuses in the playoffs, but it's what produces the best offense for this team, I think. And then in the latter half, I think that's where you throw in Jimmy Butler ISO situations to get him in rhythm for the fourth quarter, and then Tyler Hero's ability to score on 3 levels, since I think he's really the only person on this team that can truly do it at that level. So I've already talked about 3-point shooting, so let's go to the Bam Adebayo pick and roll situations. I think that is one of this team's biggest weapons, because as of right now, Bam Adebayo, I think 11th in screen assists, and he's 9th in points generated off screen assists this season. So he's been a large part of the reason why Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Kyle Lowry, and Jimmy Butler has been so successful at the rim and in the mid-range area, or sometimes on the 3-point line. And he's been the largest reason why Max Strus has had such extreme breakout year as a shooter outside of Max himself. So I do think it's the best way to generate offense for our perimeter guys, but it's also the best way to generate offense for Bam. As of right now, it causes a lot of mismatches down low, and Bam's been able to take advantage of most of them. So even to the point where he's had a down year shooting the ball from the mid-range, but he's had such a great year on the inside that he's had a career year scoring the ball. So I do think this is one of our best offensive weapons going into the playoffs. I do think it's going to be the largest reason why we are successful, since it directly correlates to some of the threes that we are able to get off. But it's the best offensive weapon for Bam right now. I do think it does help him get mismatches at the rim. We need him to be aggressive, catching lobs, catching rolling passes, or just setting screens overall, because a aggressive Bam is the best type of Bam to have in these games. Next, I do think the ISO situations dealing with Jimmy Butler will be key going into these playoffs. He's not having an extremely high efficient year in ISO situations, but he's not having a down year either. It's normally around, I guess, the average if you put it together. So he is having a pretty okay year in ISO situations, and I do think if he's even able to produce that or a little bit more going into playoff time, because say what you want, outside of last year, Jimmy Butler normally raises his game during playoff time, and with his mid-range jumper slowly becoming a little bit more effective as the years gone on, except for the first couple months he was money from there. Then we had a blank period where he just couldn't hit them, and now he's getting back to hitting them at a consistent level again. I do think that this will be one of the largest reasons why we are successful in the offensive end. Going to the fourth quarters, when we were losing a lot of those games or letting big leads die, Jimmy either wasn't getting the ball a lot in those situations, or when he was simply not producing. And if he's able to produce in those areas, sometimes in games tight in the fourth quarter, we need somebody to hit those shots. And I don't want to say it, but of course, Jimmy Butler is still supposed to be the best player on this team, and no matter what he says in the media, those guys normally do have a little bit of an ego issue. So when you do get in the fourth quarter, they do want the ball in their hands because they feel like they're the best option on offense, whether to pass the ball or get their own shot. And I would agree with that. But for Jimmy to be able to be the guy that we go to in those situations, and not Tyler, he needs to be able to produce at the level that he was either able to produce before the bubble, in Philly, or in the bubble. And lastly, I think one of the biggest offensive weapons we have going to the postseason is Tyler Herro's ability to be a 3-level scorer. I think he's the only 3-level scorer that we have on this team that can get his own shot from anywhere on the court and make them at a pretty okay rate. He's not crazy efficient, but he's far from inefficient. And I think throughout the playoffs, we're going to need to utilize that more and more because the game does get slower against certain teams or against the bigger teams in the league. And we will need to be able to score in the half-court sets. And sometimes he'll need to be able to do it by himself. And I do think he's the only guy on the team that can do it from 3 in the mid-range and at the rim. Because as of this season, Tyler Herro is averaging nearly 21 points per game on 45, 40, 86 splits, 52% effective field goal percentage, and a 56% true shooting percentage. So overall this season, he's been an amazing scorer. Definitely 6th man of the year. I don't know what type of media push they're trying to do right now, but right now, definitely 6th man of the year. And he will be probably not only our number 1 scorer next year, but he will be, I think, our main scorer going to some of these deeper playoff series. We'll be relying on him a little bit more to have a lot of those 20 to 25 point games on extreme regular basis. And the defensive end, where I think Miami Heat have been one of the best teams in the NBA numbers-wise and philosophy-wise. Their defense philosophy being not allowing points in the paint, so you have to force to outshoot them, works really well because they're the best three-point shooting team in the NBA. Very few times you're going to outshoot them in the regular season or in a full series. So I think it does complement this team very well. Of course, you're going to have to tweak it the deeper you get in the playoffs against a team like Milwaukee, who does have shooters that can beat you, or teams if you make it to the NBA Finals like the Phoenix Suns, or even the second round where they may face a team like, I guess, Toronto. And I think right now we may be looking at a first round matchup with either Atlanta or Cleveland, 2 teams that we definitely can handle. Especially Cleveland, now that they most likely may not have Evan Mobley, they won't have Jared Allen going into the playoffs. It sucks to see such a young team get rattled by injury so much, but it is easy pickings in the first round. And then when you get to the second round against a team like Philadelphia or Toronto, those are teams that are built in ways that Miami can exploit them in a lot of levels. So overall, I do think that this season, the Miami Heat are very much prepared for the NBA playoffs. Defensively, offensively, being one of the best teams in the NBA, being the best three-point shooting team in the NBA, having good isolation scores, great in the pick and roll, great at defending the rim and the paint. I think they're ready. I think they're great. And then you sprinkle in the amazing scoring that we get off the bench, even without Tyler. Now that we move Duncan down on the bench in the rotation, yeah, that's about 10 points a game coming from there. Somebody like Gabe Vincent or Victor Oladipo, depending on who you need in the lineup at any time, can definitely give you a spark off there. Caleb Martin has been absolutely incredible. Dwayne Dedmon has been solid throughout the season. Overall, this team is just perfect and ready for playoff basketball. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you think the Miami Heat still have some problems and they may not be able to make it all the way to the NBA Finals? Do you think that they're really, really good and there are top favorites to make it out the Eastern Conference Finals? I do think our schedule going to playoff time is probably the easiest out of any top 3 seed right now. But let me know what you guys think down below. That being said, like and subscribe. It really helps me know what you guys love to see from me. But that's FLB. That's my time, and I'm out.